What's up everybody, my name is Kiefer and welcome back to Overwatch. Now, I was at work today and I thought it was a little bit odd that Overwatch kept popping up in my Twitter feed throughout the day because I usually don't see too much about Overwatch on my Twitter, but I got home and finally got a chance to read the patch notes and holy fuck, who let them cook and why? I have been playing this game since 2017. I've been playing this game for 7 years. I remember Brig at launch, I remember goats, I remember everything, but this might single-handedly be the worst patch Overwatch has ever had, and it is astonishing that they could still be misdiagnosing the issues with tanks this horrendously. Let's get into it. First, we have a couple minor overall changes. The damage reduction of armor has been increased from 5 to 10, which means it is now twice as effective. Enemy health bars will also now display when they were at a low health threshold. Now, let's look at the problem children. First, the ultimate generation reduction of tanks has been increased from 30 to 40%. Meaning spamming tanks now only gives you 60% of the ult charge you would get from damaging a DPS or support hero, as opposed to 70%. Their knockback resistance has also been nerfed from 50 to 40%, meaning Lucio will be able to push them back a little bit further. The maximum duration of D.Va's defense matrix has been increased from 3 to 3.5 seconds, and the explosion damage of her micro missiles has been increased from 4 to 5.5 damage. These might seem like small buffs numerically, but an additional half a second of DM on its own would start to feel oppressive, and with micro missiles having 153 max damage and nearly 200 with a boost from Mercy or Zen, D.Va will easily be able to 1v1 and assassinate most squishies with very little effort. Doomfist also received 2 small numerical changes that have pretty large overall effects. The health he gains from a target has been buffed from 35 to 40 HP, and the delay before overhealth begins to drain has been increased from 1 to 3 seconds. The second change is the one that's spooky. I think Doomfist will be terrorizing the metal ranks, and Doom mains are gonna have a good time this season. Junker Queen's overall health from commanding Shout has been increased from 150 to 175 HP, and the self-healing multiplier of her wound damage has been increased from 2 to 2.5x. Okay, look, I know I said in the Season 11 patch notes video that we'd probably see Mauga get buffed this patch, but I didn't think we were just gonna throw him back up into the required tank tier. The knockback damage of his overrun has been increased from 25 to 30, and the stomp damage has been buffed from 60 to 75. It's basically just a better Rhine pin now in every way. The duration of his cardiac overdrive has been nerfed from 5 to 3 seconds, but the lifesteal has been buffed from 60 all the way to 100%. Mauga is just not gonna die. Ever. The damage reduction has also been buffed from 30 to 40%. Mauga will probably be the dominant tank the rest of this season. With his charge now doing 105 total damage and him having 3 seconds of what is essentially invulnerability, it is just not going to be fun to play against. It's just going to be 2 Maugas facing each other, shooting each other in the face, 2 supports pumping each of them, and all 8 non-tank characters just dying anytime they get caught in the crossfire. Congratulations, Blizzard, you have somehow made Mauga himself the embodiment of goats. Literally every problem that existed with goats now exists the second that somebody selects Mauga in the game. Orisa thankfully didn't receive too large of a buff, with her fortified duration being increased from 3.5 to 4 seconds. She won't be too bad, but I feel like she is once again going to be unkillable in bronze. Rand's Nemesis form has been buffed with its bonus armor being increased from 225 to 300 and his pummel damage being increased from 60 to 65. Honestly, I feel bad for Ram players. Out of all of the tanks, he probably received the closest thing to a nerf through Mauga's insane buff. The breakpoint of Ram's punches literally don't matter when Mauga has 100% lifesteal and gives the entire team 50% of that. I don't see any version of reality where Ramattra isn't just counter swapped out of existence by Mauga for the rest of this patch. Ryan's barrier health has been increased from 1400 to 1600, and the barrier regeneration rate has been increased from 140 to 160, and his wall impact damage has been increased from 275 to 300. Ryan will now also be unkillable in the metal ranks, but I feel like his changes are the most warranted overall out of all of the tanks. At least Ryan will now somewhat be playable, but with nearly every other tank receiving a Giga buff, I don't really know if that matters in the grand scheme of things. Roadhog's Pigpen has had its damage increased from 30 to 45 damage per second, coupled with the 60 initial damage whenever Pigpen is triggered. If you stand in a Pigpen for its full duration, it will now do a total of 195 damage, making squishies a pretty easy one tap from the scrap gun if they hang out there too long. Honestly, I don't mind this change as the intent is to make it more deadly after its activation, which is pretty fair considering I often find myself choosing to walk through a Pigpen if it's been out for a little bit because the damage is so minimal. But now it becomes a lot more of a threat, especially to heroes like Brig or Tracer. Sigma's Yep Rock has had its impact damage increased from 40 to 80, meaning it now deals 120 damage total, making his Rock Hypersphere combo a lot more lethal to squishies, and his Rock left click melee one shot is back. Winston's secondary fire charge time has been reduced from 1 to 8.5 seconds, which is kind of irrelevant, but the maximum health for his Primal Rage has been increased from 500 to 700. I feel like metal ranks are just going to have an awful time with this patch, like everybody is, but the metal ranks tanks are just not going to die and they are going to melt everything else. It's still gonna suck to play tank. The reload time while in ball form has been reduced from 2 to 1.6, and the overhealth he gives to his teammates with adaptive shields has been increased to 75 HP. Ball is now in a place where he would probably be broken in a typical Overwatch meta, but with the rest of the tank buffs this patch, I don't think we'll see that yet. I think there's a good chance that Ball goes under the radar and doesn't get touched for a patch or two, and we might see a Ball meta arise over the next few months. Rounding out the problem children, we have Zarya, whose particle barrier health has been increased from 200 to 225, and its duration has been increased from 2 to 2.5 seconds. The same buffs apply to both her self shields and her teammate shields. We've literally seen this before. Zarya now gets 45 charge per bubble. Zarya, like all the other tanks, will be broken. There is so much wrong with these tank buffs that I honestly don't even know which one is going to end up being the most dominant. I think Mauga is probably the most likely candidate, but with every tank being so lethal against squishies, I feel like ranked is just going to be two tanks counter swapping and everyone else getting melted. The problem with tank is not that tanks aren't strong enough. The problem with tanks is that it sucks to play. I started this game out as a tank main, and I haven't played more than a few hog matches each season since Overwatch 2, and most of the time, that's just for weekly challenges for Battle Pass XP. I won't pretend that I know the solution to fixing the overall rule that is tank, but I can tell you that this is not it. This is not even a band-aid solution. You are actively rubbing salt in the wound, because everybody already hates tanks, both tank players and DPS support players. Now, they have a justifiable reason to hate the role, which is going to encourage even more tank players to quit the game. This is just about the worst thing Blizzard could possibly do for the game right now, and it is mind-boggling that this patch went live. At this point, maybe 6v6 just is the best solution. Not only have tanks been gigabuffed, but the DPS passive has also received a massive nerf. It is now only half as effective against tank heroes, meaning tanks will only receive 10% healing reduction from DPS players. Nobody is gonna have fun this season. Tanks are gonna be miserable, DPS are gonna be miserable, and the supports are gonna be miserable. The rest of the changes are ultimately inconsequential in the grand scheme of the patch, so we'll move through them a little bit more quickly. Ashe has been buffed, with Bob now gaining the tank role passive. Cass has received a slight nerf, with the fall off range from his primary fire being lowered from 25 to 35 meters down to 20 to 30 meters, making him a little less effective at range. Damage from Pharah's concussive blast has been removed entirely, going from 30 damage to now dealing 0. However, the knockback radius has been increased from 6 to 8 meters, and the knockback has been increased by 11%. So concussive blast is now less deadly when you're not near an edge, but much more lethal in a classic like Ilios Well. Finally, we have the supports. Ana's sleep has been nerfed, with it now affecting tank heroes for 0.5 seconds less, meaning if Ana sleeps a DPS, they will be slept for 3.5 seconds, while if she sleeps a tank, they will only be slept for 3 seconds. Illari has received a minor change where her teammates no longer see the destroyed icon when her pylon is broken, and lastly, Zen has received a minor buff, with his ultimate cost being decreased by 10%. Overall, I don't mind the changes for support and DPS roles, and honestly, I think those by themselves would have done a lot to make tank feel a lot better to play. But the tank changes suck, like actually suck, and I don't think I'm going to be playing any ranked at all this patch. I wasn't playing much before, but now there's not even a chance that 1 in every 10 games will be fun. They're just all gonna suck. I don't know who thought buffing tanks would make the role better, but it's just gonna make everyone hate tanks even more. Tanks are still not even gonna have fun because they will just be perpetually 1v1ing the other tank, and it's just gonna be a slogfest. Anyways, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments what you think of this patch and if you're going to be playing it all, and I will see you next time.